Dr. Kethal floated in the warm waters of his research chamber aboard the peaceful current. His blue-green skin rippled with worry as he watched the data streams flowing across his bioscreens. Something was very wrong in the outer rim. The Zephyrian scientist had been studying deep space readings for 3 days now. At first, he thought his equipment was broken. The sensors showed entire star systems simply disappearing from the galaxy's energy grid. Not destroyed by supernovas or black holes, but gone in a way that made no sense. "Commander Velth," Kethal called through the ship's water-filled corridors. "You need to see this." Commander Velth swam into the research chamber, her tentacles moving with the grace that all Zephyrians possessed. Like all members of her species, she had evolved in the peaceful oceans of their homeworld. Violence was something they had read about in ancient texts, not something they understood. "What troubles you, old friend?" she asked, her voice creating gentle bubbles in the water. Kethal pointed to the main display. 3 star systems have gone dark in the past week: the Calarian system, New Haven, and the Trader's Rest Station. All of them simply stopped existing on our sensors. Velth studied the data. Her large, dark eyes showed confusion. "Equipment failure?" "That's what I thought. But look at this." Kethal brought up a new screen. "I sent probe drones to investigate. They found the systems, but they're completely dead. No life, no energy, nothing. The planets are still there, but they've turned into some kind of crystal." The commander's skin changed color, a sign of deep worry among her people. "Show me the probe recordings." The holographic display filled with images that made both Zephyrians recoil in horror. Where once there had been green worlds full of life, now only gray. Crystal spheres remained. The very space around the dead systems felt cold and empty by the deep currents. Velth whispered, "What could do this?" Kethal pulled up another screen. The probe detected traces of an unknown energy signature. "I've been comparing it to our historical databases. Commander, I think I know what this is." He displayed an ancient text that glowed with warning symbols. "The Devourers. The old records speak of creatures that consume life itself. They were supposed to be extinct, destroyed eons ago by the First Alliance." Velth read the ancient warnings. Her tentacles trembled. "These records are millions of years old. Surely they can't be real." "The energy signatures match perfectly," Kethal said. "And look at this trajectory analysis. They're heading toward the galactic core. If they maintain this speed and direction, they'll reach the populated systems within months." The commander activated the ship's emergency communications. Within minutes, the peaceful current was transmitting on all galactic frequencies. The message was simple, but terrifying. An ancient enemy had returned, and they were consuming entire worlds. The response from the Galactic Council came quickly. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in emergency session. The Altarians offered their fastest evacuation ships. The Centauri Collective promised to open their worlds to refugees. The wise Andromedans shared their ancient knowledge about the Devourers. But when the discussion turned to military action, silence filled the council chambers. "We are a peaceful galaxy," declared Ambassador Thrix of the Vegan Union. "We have not known war for 10,000 years. Our ships carry no weapons beyond simple mining lasers. The old warrior races are long gone," added Counselor Zara from the inner worlds. "We evolved beyond the need for violence. Our technology focuses on creation, not destruction." Representative after representative stood to explain why they could not fight. The Aquarians had no concept of harming other living beings. The silicon-based crystallines found violence incomprehensible. The energy beings existed on a plane where conflict was impossible. Dr. Kethal watched the proceedings with growing despair. His people, like all the galactic species, had evolved on gentle worlds. They had never needed to develop weapons or learn to fight. Their greatest conflicts were solved with discussion and compromise. "We must evacuate the outer colonies," Velth said as they watched the council debate. "It's our only option." But evacuation would take years. The Devourers would consume thousands of worlds before the peaceful species could move their populations to safety. Entire civilizations would be lost. Kethal was about to shut off the communications array when something unexpected happened. A new signal appeared on their screens, originating from the very edge of the galaxy. The transmission was crude compared to the elegant biotechnology the galactic species used. It seemed almost primitive. "Unknown vessel. This is the peaceful current of the Zephyrian research fleet," Velth transmitted. "Please identify yourself." The response came in a language none of them recognized, but their computers quickly worked to translate it. The voice was strange, harsh and flat compared to the musical tones of galactic speech. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force responding to your distress call. We have analyzed your transmission and the threat data. Message received. Coordinates locked. Fleet en route." Velth and Kethal stared at each other in confusion. "Terran?" Velth asked. "I've never heard of this species." Kethal quickly accessed the galactic database. "Here it is, Sol 3, also called Earth. It's listed as a Class II-3 death world in the Outer Rim. The classification notes say it's too dangerous for normal life forms to visit." "A death world?" Velth's skin turned pale. What kind of beings could survive on such a place? The database entry was brief and disturbing. Sol 3 was described as a planet of extremes: violent weather, dangerous predators, toxic environments, and constant natural disasters. The few long-range scans on file showed a world where life had to fight constantly just to survive. "It says here that the dominant species are bipedal predators," Kethal read aloud. "They have forward-facing eyes for hunting and powerful limbs for combat. The report recommends avoiding all contact." Predators? Velth could barely comprehend the word. In their peaceful galaxy, the concept of one species hunting another was almost unthinkable. And they're coming here? Another transmission arrived from the approaching fleet. This time it included tactical data and ship specifications. The peaceful aliens studied the information with growing alarm. The human vessels were not exploration ships or research platforms. They were something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. Warships. The energy readings showed massive engines, heavy armor, and weapons systems that defied understanding. These ships were built for one purpose only: to destroy other ships. How? Many of them are coming? Velth asked. Kethal checked the sensor data again. According to their fleet manifest, they're sending 237 vessels. But Commander, look at these tonnage readings. Some of these ships are larger than our research stations. The implications were staggering. While the galactic species had spent eons developing art, philosophy, and peaceful technology, somewhere in the Outer Rim, a species of predators had been building instruments of war. "Should we warn the Council?" Velth asked. "Warn them of what? That help is coming, or that we may have invited something as dangerous as the Devourers themselves?" As they debated, long-range sensors detected the approaching human fleet. The ships moved in perfect formation, their energy signatures blazing like stars against the darkness. They traveled faster than any galactic vessel, pushing through space with the confidence of beings who had never known a world without danger. "Doctor," Kethal made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Admiral Chen, this is Dr. Kethal of the Zephyrian Research Fleet. We are grateful for your response, but we must ask, what kind of beings are you?" The answer came back immediately, spoken in that same flat, harsh voice. "We are what happens when a peaceful species needs someone else to do the killing." Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Sol Defense Station, watching the alien distress signals scroll across her screens. For 30 years, humanity had been listening to the galaxy's communications, learning their languages, studying their peaceful civilizations from afar. They had remained hidden, knowing that their very existence would terrify these gentle beings. Now everything had changed. "Admiral, the Joint Chiefs are ready for emergency conference," reported Lieutenant Torres, her aide. "The President wants your recommendation within the hour." Sarah nodded, her eyes still fixed on the images of dead worlds turned to crystal. She had seen war before, had fought in the border conflicts and the Titan campaign. But this was different. This was extinction on a galactic scale. The conference room filled with the highest-ranking military officers on Earth. General Marcus Torres of the Space Marines, a bear of a man with scars from the Martian uprising. Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the Deep Space Fleet, calm and calculating as always. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the xenobiologist who had first cracked the alien languages. "Tell me what we're looking at, Elena," Sarah said, as holographic displays showed the Devourer attacks. Dr. Vasquez stood, her dark hair showing gray streaks from years of studying alien transmissions. The entities they call Devourers appear to be a crystalline hive mind. They convert organic matter into more of themselves, consuming not just life, but the energy that supports it. 3 star systems are completely dead. "And the aliens asking for help?" asked General Torres. "Peaceful species, all of them. They evolved on garden worlds with no major predators, abundant resources, stable climates. They've had no wars for thousands of years. Their ships carry mining lasers at best. Admiral Tanaka leaned forward. So they can't fight these devourers. They don't understand the concept of fighting, Elena replied. To them, violence is something from ancient history books. They're trying to evacuate entire worlds. But it will take decades. Sarah studied the tactical displays. The devourers were moving toward the galactic core where billions of peaceful beings lived on thousands of worlds. Without intervention, it would be the largest genocide in galactic history. What are our assets? She asked. General Torres activated the military display. 3rd Fleet is on patrol near Jupiter. 7th Fleet just completed training exercises at Alpha Centauri. The new dreadnought Vengeful Angel finished trials last month. Total available forces, 237 combat vessels. Marines, 50,000 combat-ready troops across all fleets. The 1st Division is equipped for boarding actions. Sarah looked around the room. These were career military officers, people who understood the cost of war. They also understood the cost of doing nothing. Recommendations? Admiral Tanaka spoke first. From a tactical standpoint, we have advantages. Our ships are built for combat. Our weapons are designed to destroy other vessels. Our crews train constantly for battle. From a strategic view, added General Torres, we're talking about revealing humanity to the entire galaxy. Once we engage, there's no going back to hiding. Dr. Vasquez cleared her throat. There's another consideration. These alien species will be terrified of us. We represent everything they've evolved beyond. To them, we'll look like monsters. Sarah nodded. She had read the psychological profiles. Humans, with their forward-facing predator eyes, powerful builds, and casual attitude toward violence, would be nightmare fuel for species that had never known danger. But if we don't act, she said quietly, there won't be a galaxy left to be afraid of us. The debate continued for an hour. The political implications were staggering. Humanity had always assumed they would make first contact as explorers or diplomats, not as warriors arriving to fight an ancient evil. Finally, Sarah made her decision. We go. Full fleet deployment, rules of engagement, protect civilian populations, destroy all devourer forces, minimize exposure to friendly alien vessels. Within 6 hours, the human war machine began to move. The Vengeful Angel led the fleet out of Sol system, her massive bulk bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Behind her came the carriers Ironstorm and Thunderbolt, their launch bays filled with fighter craft. Cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels formed up in perfect military precision. Captain Rodriguez commanded the Vengeful Angel from her bridge, watching her crew prepare for combat. These were professional soldiers, men and women who had trained their entire lives for war. Unlike the peaceful aliens, humans understood that sometimes violence was the only answer. Jump coordinates locked in, reported the navigation officer. Fleet reports ready for hyperspace. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Sarah's voice carried across the fleet communications. We are about to make first contact with alien civilizations. Remember that we represent all of humanity. We go not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy has called for help, and we will answer. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, traveling faster than the peaceful aliens thought possible. Human engineering had always focused on practical applications. While other species built beautiful ships for exploration, humans built ships that could fight and win. During the 3-day journey to the crisis zone, the crews prepared for battle. Marines checked their weapons and armor. Fighter pilots ran combat simulations. Engineers tested the massive gun batteries that lined every human warship. Dr. Vasquez worked with the communications team, preparing translation protocols and first contact procedures. The challenge was enormous. How do you introduce yourself to a peaceful species when you're arriving with enough firepower to destroy solar systems? Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the alien research vessel, reported the communications officer. Peaceful current, Zephyrian research fleet. Sarah took the communication personally. This would be humanity's first real conversation with another intelligent species. This is Dr. Kethal of the Zephyrian research fleet, came the translated voice, musical and strange to human ears. We are grateful for your response, but we must ask, what kind of beings are you? Sarah considered her answer carefully. How do you explain humanity to beings who had never known predators? We are what happens when a peaceful species needs someone else to do the killing, she replied. The silence that followed told her everything about how that answer was received. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez reported privately. Long-range sensors are detecting Devourer scout ships in the system ahead. 3 crystalline vessels, each approximately 2 kilometers long. Sarah nodded. The talking would have to wait. All ships, battle stations, prepare for first contact with hostile forces. Throughout the fleet, alarm klaxons sounded, gun batteries powered up, fighter squadrons prepared for launch, Marines suited up in their combat armor. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system. Immediately, their sensors detected the alien research ships and the approaching Devourer vessels. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez as she saw the Devourers for the first time. The crystalline ships looked like massive insects made of sharp angles and cutting edges. They moved with unnatural precision, converting asteroids into more of themselves. As they traveled, "Target the lead Devourer vessel," Sarah ordered. "All ships weapons free." The Vengeful Angel spoke first, her main guns sending streams of superheated plasma across space. The other human ships followed, filling the void with weapons fire that had never been seen in this peaceful galaxy. The Devourers, encountering resistance for the first time in eons, tried to adapt. But they were facing something they had never encountered before, a species that had evolved to kill efficiently. Human weapons tore through crystalline hulls. Fighter craft swarmed the Devourer ships, their pilots performing maneuvers that would kill most galactic species. The battle was brief and decisive. When the last Devourer ship broke apart, spreading crystal fragments across space, the human fleet regrouped. They had announced their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving dozens of transmissions from alien vessels throughout the system. They're all asking the same question, which is, what are you and where did you come from?" Sarah looked out at the peaceful alien ships, knowing that humanity had just changed the galaxy forever. They were no longer the hidden watchers from the Outer Rim. They were the monsters that other species would call when bigger monsters needed to be stopped. The shuttle bay of the Peaceful Current had never been designed for beings like Ambassador Lisa Chen. The Zephyrians watched nervously as the human diplomat emerged from her small craft, moving with the confident stride of a predator species. "Doctor." Kethal floated in his environmental suit, trying not to show his fear. The human was smaller than he had expected, but everything about her radiated contained danger. Her eyes faced forward like a hunter's. Her movements were quick and precise. When she smiled, showing white teeth, several Zephyrian crew members fled to the far corners of the bay. "Dr. Kethal, I presume," Ambassador Chen said through her translator. Her voice was much softer than the harsh military communications they had received from the fleet. "I'm Lisa Chen, Earth's first interstellar ambassador. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Kethal forced himself to approach. "Welcome aboard the Peaceful Current, Ambassador. We are grateful for your assistance, though we must admit we find your presence unsettling." Lisa nodded understandingly. During the journey from the human fleet, she had studied everything known about Zephyrian psychology. These beings had evolved in warm oceans, where the greatest threat was bad weather. The concept of predation was alien to them. "I understand. Our species must seem frightening," she said. "Perhaps we could speak in private. I can explain more about humanity and why we chose to help." They moved to Kethal's research chamber, where the water-filled environment allowed the Zephyrian to relax slightly. Lisa activated her breathing apparatus and joined him in the aquatic space. "Your species fascinates us," Kethal began carefully. "We have studied your vessel designs from a distance. They appear to be built solely for combat." "That's correct," Lisa replied. "Humanity has been at war for most of our history. Our homeworld is what we call a death trap. Everything there tries to kill us: the weather, the animals, diseases, natural disasters, even other humans." Kethal's skin changed color, a sign of deep distress. "Other humans? You fight your own species?" "We've fought each other for resources, territory, ideology, sometimes just because we could. We've had thousands of wars throughout our history. We nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons several times. This is..." Kethal struggled for words. "How do you function as a society?" Lisa smiled, but to the Zephyrian it looked like a predator showing its teeth. "We learned that sometimes you need to fight to protect what you love. We became very good at organized violence because our survival depended on it." The conversation was interrupted by alarms throughout the ship. Commander Velth's voice echoed through the corridors. "All stations, Devourer contacts detected approaching the outer system. Multiple vessels, much larger than the scout ships." In the human fleet, Admiral Sarah Chen received the same warnings. The crystalline ships appearing on their sensors were massive, each one the size of a small moon. There were 12 of them, moving in perfect formation toward the inhabited worlds of the system. Admiral, the alien research vessel is requesting immediate evacuation assistance, reported the communications officer. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were beautiful but helpless. Their hulls were designed for efficiency, not protection. Their engines optimized for comfort, not speed. They would be destroyed in minutes if the Devourers reached them. All ships, defensive, positions around the civilian vessels. Prepare for engagement. Back aboard the Peaceful Current, Lisa and Kethal watched the approaching battle from the observation deck. The human fleet moved with deadly precision, their ships spreading out in formations the Zephyrians had never seen before. "Why do your ships move like that?" Kethal asked. "Battle formations," Lisa explained. "Each ship has a specific role. The destroyers screen for incoming attacks. The cruisers provide heavy firepower. The carriers launch fighter squadrons for close support. And your people, they choose to do this? To risk death in combat?" Lisa considered the question. "For us, some things are worth dying for. Protecting innocent people from creatures like the Devourers is one of them." The first Devourer ship entered weapons range, and the Vengeful Angel opened fire. Streams of plasma and kinetic projectiles lanced across space, striking the crystalline hull with devastating effect. The alien vessel staggered but continued its approach, beginning to regenerate the damage. "They can repair themselves," Kethal observed with growing horror. "Then we'll have to hit them harder," Lisa replied calmly. The human fleet demonstrated the difference between their approach to problems and the galactic norm. Where peaceful species would study and negotiate, humans applied overwhelming force. Waves of fighters swarmed the Devourer ships, targeting weak points and disrupting their regeneration processes. But the real shock came when the first Devourer ship managed to close with a human cruiser. Instead of retreating, the human vessel rammed directly into the crystalline entity, its armored hull tearing through crystal structures while its point defense weapons fired continuously. "They're attacking with their own ship as a weapon," Kethal gasped. "Ramming speed is a legitimate tactic when you're outgunned," Lisa explained. "The crew evacuated to the aft sections before impact. Most of them will survive." Most of them. To the Zephyrians, the casual acceptance of casualties was incomprehensible. In their peaceful civilization, losing even one life was a tragedy that required years of mourning. The battle raged for hours. The Devourers adapted to human tactics, but humans adapted faster. When the crystalline ships began jamming communications, human captains switched to pre-planned attack patterns. When the Devourers tried to convert human weapons into more of themselves, human engineers detonated the ammunition before it could be absorbed. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the battle from the human flagship, studying Devourer behavior patterns. What she discovered changed everything. "Admiral, I'm detecting organized retreat patterns from the Devourer forces. They're not mindless consumers. They're intelligent, and they're learning from this engagement." Sarah frowned as she studied the tactical display. 3 Devourer ships had been destroyed, but the remaining 9 were withdrawing in good order, taking samples of human technology with them. "They're going to adapt," she realized. "When they come back, they'll be ready for our tactics." The immediate threat passed, but the larger problem remained. The Devourers now knew that humanity existed, and they would return with better defenses and new strategies. In the aftermath of the battle, representatives from dozens of peaceful species contacted the human fleet. The conversations were awkward and frightening for both sides. Ambassador Thrix of the Vegan Union spoke for many when he transmitted, "We are grateful for your assistance, but we must ask, what do you want from us?" Lisa handled the diplomatic responses while Admiral Chen managed the military situation. The gulf between human and galactic thinking was enormous. When humans offered to establish permanent defense stations, the aliens worried about military occupation. When humans suggested joint training exercises, the aliens couldn't understand why anyone would want to learn about violence. "They think we're going to conquer them," Lisa reported to Sarah during a private communication. "Are we?" Sarah asked bluntly. "No. But they don't understand the difference between warriors and invaders. In their experience, anyone with weapons is a threat." The cultural exchange continued despite the fear and misunderstanding. Humans learned about galactic society, the art, music, philosophy, and technology developed by species that had never known war. The peaceful races learned about human history, though much of it horrified them. When Kethel discovered that humans had once kept other humans as slaves, he became physically ill. When humans learned that some galactic species had never experienced death by violence, they struggled to comprehend such innocence. But slowly, understanding began to grow. The aliens realized that human violence was not random or cruel. It was controlled and directed toward protecting others. Humans learned that the galaxy's peaceful nature was not weakness, but the result of millions of years of social evolution. The fragile alliance was tested when long-range sensors detected more Devourer fleets approaching from deep space. The enemy had learned from their first encounter with humanity and was returning with overwhelming force. "How many ships?" Admiral Chen asked. 237 Devourer vessels, Admiral. They're moving in battle formation, and they've modified their hulls with what appears to be anti-human defenses. Sarah looked out at the small fleet of human ships, then at the peaceful alien vessels they were protecting. The odds were impossible, but that had never stopped humanity before. "All ships prepare for general engagement. Send a message to Earth. We may need reinforcements." What none of them knew was that the Devourers had made a crucial decision. They would eliminate the human threat by attacking its source. The main Devourer force was not heading for the galactic core, it was heading for Earth itself. The news of humanity's intervention spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On peaceful worlds across hundreds of star systems, beings gathered around communication devices to watch recordings of the battle. The footage showed something they had never seen before: organized violence on a massive scale. On the aquatic world of Zephyr Prime, crowds of blue-green citizens floated in their city centers, watching human warships tear through Devourer vessels with weapons that defied understanding. Many fainted at the sight of the ramming attack, others simply stared in shocked silence. Ambassador Thrix of the Vegan Union called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 300 species attended via holographic link, all asking the same questions. Who were these humans? Where had they come from? And most importantly, what did they want? "The species calls itself humanity," reported Dr. Seln, the Council's chief xenobiologist. "They originate from a world designated Sol 3, which our long-range surveys classified as uninhabitable. Somehow not only did life survive there, it evolved into something we've never encountered before." "Predators," whispered Counselor Vash of the Crystal Collective. "Pure predators who have turned killing into an art form. The recordings show coordinated group tactics, advanced weapons technology, and most disturbing of all, the willingness to sacrifice their own lives in combat," Dr. Seln continued. "They approach warfare the way we approach mathematics, as a problem to be solved efficiently. While the peaceful galaxy debated, the Devourers were planning their response. In the depths of space, crystalline minds that thought as one analyzed every second of the battle footage. They had encountered resistance before, but never like this. These humans fought with a creativity and viciousness that the hive mind found difficult to counter. The solution was simple: eliminate the source. Long-range Devourer scouts had traced the human fleet's origin point back to the Sol system. If they could destroy Earth, the human threat would end before it could spread. 300 Devourer ships began the long journey toward humanity's homeworld. They moved in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls modified with new defenses based on their analysis of human weapons. This time, they would be ready. Admiral Sarah Chen received the warning just as her fleet was preparing to engage another group of Devourer forces near the galactic rim. The message came from Earth's deep space monitoring stations, automated probes that had been watching the void for decades. "Admiral, Priority Alpha message from Sol Defense Command," reported her communications officer. "Massive Devourer force detected, heading directly for Earth. Estimated time of arrival, 72 hours. Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. Earth's defenses were strong, but 300 Devourer ships represented an overwhelming force. The home fleet consisted of only 50 vessels, and most of their best ships were here with her, days away from Earth. "Send immediate recall orders to all human vessels," she commanded. "Maximum burn back to Sol system, and activate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was humanity's deepest secret. For 2 centuries since they had first detected alien signals from space, humans had prepared for the possibility of galactic war. While the peaceful species had assumed humanity was limited to one star system, the reality was very different. Throughout the galaxy, hidden human assets began to reveal themselves. What appeared to be dead asteroids suddenly came alive with engine signatures. Derelict ships drifting in empty space powered up their reactors. Mining stations on remote moons activated weapon systems that shouldn't have existed. Commander Janet Morrison had spent 15 years pretending to be a deep space surveyor in the Vega system. Her ship, the Scientific Explorer, looked like a research vessel from the outside. In reality, it was a stealth cruiser equipped with the latest human military technology. Morrison to all sleeper assets. She transmitted on encrypted frequencies. Protocol 7 is active. Converge on Sol system immediately. The homeworld is under attack. Similar messages went out to hidden bases throughout known space. Humanity had been everywhere watching everything, preparing for threats that the peaceful galaxy never imagined. The response was immediate. Ships that had been camouflaged as space debris revealed themselves as military vessels. Research stations became forward operating bases. Mining operations transformed into weapon manufacturing centers. Captain David Park commanded the hidden fortress built inside the asteroid series. For 30 years, his people had lived in the rock, expanding its interior into a massive military complex. When Protocol 7 activated, Ceres shed its outer shell like a snake molting, revealing a battle station larger than most alien cities. Ceres command to Sol Defense. Park transmitted. We are operational and moving to intercept position. All defensive platforms are online. But the most dramatic revelation came when the Devourers arrived at the edge of the Sol system. They had expected to find a single defended world with primitive orbital defenses. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a militarized star system. The moon opened like a flower, its surface splitting apart to reveal massive gun batteries that had been hidden beneath fake craters. Mars unveiled, launch bays filled with fighter squadrons. The asteroid belt came alive with automated defense platforms that had been disguised as space rocks for decades. Jupiter's moons revealed themselves to be forward command posts, their surfaces bristling with sensors and communication arrays. Even the outer planets contributed to the defense, their orbiting stations launching swarms of autonomous hunter-killer drones. The Devourer fleet found itself facing not one world's defenses, but an entire star system converted into a fortress. Admiral Harrison Blake commanded Sol Defense from his headquarters deep within the moon's military complex. A career soldier who had fought in 3 interplanetary wars, he watched the approaching enemy with cold calculation. Enemy fleet composition: 300 vessels, largest approximately 15 kilometers in length, reported his tactical officer. They're maintaining formation at the system's edge, probably analyzing our defenses. Let them look, Blake replied. Fire control, bring all primary batteries online. Launch all ready squadrons. Signal the deep space platforms to move to intercept positions. The first shot of the Battle of Sol came from a gun battery hidden in the asteroid belt. A kinetic projectile moving at a significant fraction of light speed struck the lead Devourer ship, punching completely through its crystalline hull. The message was clear. Earth would not be an easy target. The Devourers adapted quickly, spreading their formation to minimize damage from the long-range weapons. They began their approach, converting smaller asteroids into more of themselves as they advanced. But humans had planned for this too. Hidden charges throughout the asteroid belt detonated simultaneously, denying the Devourers the raw materials they needed for reproduction. What the aliens had seen as resources became a debris field of useless rock fragments. The battle that followed redefined warfare for the peaceful galaxy. Every human defensive position fought with the desperation of beings protecting their only home. When the Devourers broke through the outer defenses, they found more defenses. When they shattered those, they encountered even more. Mars became a scene of unimaginable violence as Devourer landing craft attempted to establish beachheads on the planet's surface. Human Marines, fighting in environmental suits and powered armor, met them with weapons that could melt crystalline structures. The fighting was brutal in close quarters, the kind of combat that humans had perfected over millennia of warfare. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led her squad through the Martian canyons, hunting Devourer infiltrators that had made it past the orbital defenses. Her soldiers moved like predators, using the terrain and their superior mobility to outmaneuver the larger crystalline entities. Contact left, called Sergeant Rodriguez, his plasma rifle already firing. 3 hostiles, moving to flank. The human squad responded with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this kind of fight their entire careers. While the peaceful galaxy debated philosophy, humans had been preparing for war. Above the planet, the space battle raged with equal intensity. Human ships appeared from hidden positions throughout the system, striking at the Devourer fleet from unexpected directions. The enemy found themselves fighting not just the sole defense force, but vessels that emerged from the rings of Saturn, the moons of Jupiter, even the sun's chromosphere where specially shielded ships had been hiding. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the battle from Earth's command center, analyzing Devourer behavior patterns in real time. What she discovered horrified her. Admiral Blake, the Devourers aren't just trying to conquer Earth, she reported. They're trying to consume it. If they reach the planet's surface, they'll convert the entire biosphere into more of themselves. Blake nodded grimly. Then we don't let them reach the surface. The defense of Earth became a lesson in human warfare doctrine. When overwhelming force didn't work, humans adapted. When adaptation wasn't enough, they improvised. When improvisation failed, they made sacrifices that would have been unthinkable to the peaceful species. The cruiser Indomitable was dying, her hull cracked open by Devourer crystal weapons. Captain Maria Santos made a decision that defined human military thinking. The final battle began at the Nexus, the ancient space station that served as the heart of galactic civilization. Built millions of years ago by the first spacefaring species, it had grown over time into a massive structure containing the governments, universities, and cultural centers of 300 different worlds. Now it was a target. The main Devourer force had bypassed the outer systems and gone straight for the galactic core. 500 crystalline ships, each the size of a small moon, surrounded the Nexus like a closing fist. Their intent was clear: consume the center of peaceful civilization and spread outward from there. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Vengeful Angel, watching the enemy fleet position itself for the final assault. Behind her, the combined human fleet had assembled for what might be their last battle. 200 ships, many of them damaged from previous encounters, faced an enemy force that outnumbered them more than 2 to 1. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Nexus, reported her communications officer. It's Ambassador Thrix of the Galactic Council. Sarah accepted the communication. The holographic image of the tall, graceful alien appeared before her. Even through the translation system, she could hear the fear in his voice. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council and all peaceful species, we surrender the defense of the Nexus to your forces. We have no weapons, no shields that can stop them. Our evacuation ships cannot move fast enough to save even a fraction of our people. Sarah studied the tactical display. Billions of beings lived and worked in the Nexus. Researchers, artists, philosophers, children, all of them helpless against what was coming. Ambassador, get your people to the core sections of the station. Use whatever shielding you have. We'll handle the rest. Admiral, Thrix said quietly, there are too many of them. Even your forces cannot face such numbers and survive. Maybe not, Sarah replied, but we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do. She cut the transmission and turned to her fleet commanders. All ships, battle stations. We have one objective: protect the civilian population at all costs. Rules of engagement are weapons free. Fight smart, fight hard, and make every shot count. The human fleet moved into position around the Nexus with the precision of a machine built for war. Carriers launched fighter squadrons that filled space, with small, deadly craft. Cruisers positioned themselves to provide overlapping fields of fire. The few remaining dreadnoughts, including the Vengeful Angel, took point positions where they could bring their heaviest weapons to bear. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the flagship, analyzing the final pieces of data about Devourer physiology. What she had discovered might change everything, if she could find a way to use it. Admiral, I think I understand what the Devourers really are, she announced over the communication system. They're not invaders from another galaxy. They're refugees from a dying dimension, consuming life energy because it's the only thing that can sustain them in our reality. Does that change our tactics? Sarah asked. No, but it explains their behavior. They're not evil. They're desperate, but that makes them even more dangerous. Desperate beings don't surrender. The battle began when the first wave of Devourer ships moved toward the Nexus. Human weapons opened fire at maximum range, streams of plasma and kinetic projectiles crossing millions of kilometers of space. The crystalline vessels absorbed tremendous punishment but continued their advance, their hulls regenerating damage almost as quickly as it was inflicted. Captain Lisa Rodriguez commanded the carrier Iron Storm, directing her fighter squadrons with the skill of a conductor leading an orchestra. Her pilots were the best humanity had to offer, men and women who could perform maneuvers that would kill most galactic species. Phoenix Squadron hit their power nodes. Raven Squadron, Go for the weapons clusters. Make them hurt, she ordered. The fighters swarmed around the massive Devourer ships like angry insects, their weapons targeting weak points that human analysis had identified. But for every hit they scored, more crystalline vessels entered weapons range. The real shock came when the Devourers revealed their final adaptation. They had learned from every previous encounter with human forces, and now they deployed weapons specifically designed to counter human tactics. Crystal projectiles that could home in on human ships, energy beams that disrupted human shields. Worst of all, boarding pods that could penetrate human hulls and deliver Devourer entities directly into the ships. The cruiser Defiant was one of the first vessels to be boarded. Captain James Park found himself fighting crystalline creatures in the corridors of his own ship, using his sidearm and emergency equipment against aliens that could absorb energy weapons. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We are being boarded. Implement close combat protocols. Marines to all decks." What followed was the kind of fighting that only humans truly understood. Close quarters. Combat in confined spaces, using improvised weapons against enemies that could regenerate from almost any wound. The crew fought with fire axes, cutting torches, even their bare hands when ammunition ran out. But humans had advantages that the Devourers hadn't anticipated. They could think creatively under pressure. They could coordinate without central command. Most importantly, they could sacrifice themselves to save others. Chief Engineer Maria Santos sealed herself in the reactor compartment when Devourer entities broke through the final bulkhead. "Bridge, this is engineering. I'm initiating emergency core shutdown. That should stop them from converting the ship, but you need to evacuate now." The Defiant became a dead hulk drifting through space, but her sacrifice prevented the Devourers from using the ship against the human fleet. Similar scenes played out across the battle zone. Human ships fought with a desperation that amazed even their enemies. When weapons failed, they used their ships as rams. When hulls were breached, they continued fighting in environmental suits. When all else failed, they set their reactors to overload and took their enemies with them. But the Devourers kept coming. For every crystalline ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The human fleet was being overwhelmed by simple numbers. That's when Dr. Vasquez made her breakthrough. "Admiral, I found it," she announced. "The Devourers have a critical weakness. They're dependent on a quantum resonance frequency to maintain cohesion in our dimension. If we can disrupt that frequency, they'll what? Die? They'll be forced back to their original dimension. They won't be destroyed, but they won't be able to survive in our reality anymore." Sarah looked at the tactical display. Half her fleet was gone, and the Devourers were closing in on the Nexus. "What do you need?" Every ship would need to modify their main deflector arrays to generate the disruption frequency. "But Admiral, the power requirements are enormous. Any ship that tries this won't have power for weapons or shields." Sarah made the hardest decision of her military career. "All ships prepare to implement Dr. Vasquez's frequency disruption. This is a one-shot deal, people. We either save the galaxy or we all die trying." The human fleet began the modifications while continuing to fight. Engineering crews worked under fire, rerouting power systems while Devourer weapons pounded their hulls. Many ships were destroyed before they could complete the process. But enough survived. "All ships report ready," announced the communications officer. Sarah looked around the bridge of the Vengeful Angel at the men and women who had followed her across the galaxy. They were soldiers, but they were also the last hope of billions, of peaceful beings who had never learned to fight for themselves. "Initiate frequency disruption on my mark," she ordered. 3, 2, 1, mark. Every remaining human ship pulsed with energy, as their modified deflector arrays generated the quantum disruption frequency. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Throughout the Devourer fleet, crystalline ships began to lose cohesion. The aliens' carefully maintained quantum structure, which allowed them to exist in this dimension, started to break down. They weren't being destroyed. They were being sent home to a dimension where they could survive without consuming other life forms. The largest Devourer vessels flickered like bad holographic projections, then faded from reality entirely. Smaller ships simply vanished, leaving behind only empty space where moments before there had been an overwhelming enemy fleet. The battle was over. The galaxy was saved, but the cost had been enormous. Of the 200 ships in the human fleet, only 37 survived the final battle. Thousands of human personnel were dead, and entire ship classes had been wiped out. In the aftermath, Sarah found herself standing before the Galactic Council, addressing representatives of hundreds of species. The Great Hall of the Nexus had been repaired, but the scars of the battle were still visible on its outer hulls. The Devourer threat has been eliminated, she reported. They have been returned to their home dimension and should not be able to return to ours. Ambassador Thrix stood to respond. Admiral Chen, on behalf of all peaceful species, we offer our eternal gratitude. You have saved our civilization at tremendous cost to your own. The question now, added Counselor Vash, is what happens next. Your species has revealed capabilities that frankly terrify us.